channel. This is Chronically Me. My name is Nicole, and before you do anything else, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and share it with as many people as you can, because that is the whole goal here, is to get as many people interested, and maybe this can be some kind of support system for other people with chronic illnesses. I particularly have CRPS, also known as RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. I will do another video explaining exactly what that is. It's quite extensive. I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, and mast cell activation disorder, all of which came after my initial RSD diagnosis. My backstory, October 2nd, 2007, I was in a head-on collision that changed my life. I will insert pictures here. And I hit a Jeep Wrangler head-on. Luckily, I had my seatbelt on, but I had extensive injuries. I had a traumatic brain injury. I was in the hospital for a long time, recovering. One of my main injuries was I had shattered my right arm, including extensive nerve damage. They did some external fixation the day of surgery, the day of the accident, and I noticed even a couple of months after, where I should have been healing, I was having extreme, unrelenting pain. The ortho doc had no idea what it was. He said it was post-traumatic arthritis, which I still don't really think is a thing. But several doctor's appointments to him later, several more, pain medication prescriptions back when it wasn't such a big deal. Nothing was helping. I finally saw a pain management specialist nearby where I lived at the time. He was not a very good doctor. He had no bedside manner. He was not personable. He didn't speak to me directly the entire appointment. He had a recorder that he spoke into in front of me. At the end of the appointment, which lasted about 45 minutes, he handed me a brochure and said, "This is what you have. Your life has changed," and sent me out the door. So I had nothing but a brochure to go on. I had made several other appointments in the new city that I was living in. I had just moved right after I got the diagnosis. My ex-husband was military, so we were all over the States. And I had gotten 3 more doctors to actually run tests and do the EMG study and the thermography and CAT scans and MRIs and bone scans. And it came out that I in fact did have reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Still not knowing what that meant, and living in South Dakota at the time, sorry, dropped my remote, but not living anywhere near my family, which was in Florida. I was now in South Dakota, seeing a physician, a pain management specialist, who pretty much specialized in injections. He set me up on a series of stellate ganglion blocks, which go right under your collarbone. He did not use fluoroscopy when he did these. He freehanded every single one. I was in his office 3 times a week for 2 months, and I had gotten an injection every time I was in his office. Now, if you go back and you research stellate ganglion blocks or any kind of nerve injections, you'll see that it tells you after 3, if there's no improvement, you should not continue doing these injections. Now, during these injections, my doctor had also told me that he wanted me to have a spinal cord stimulator implanted. First, we would do the trial. If that worked, then he would go ahead and implant. Now, mind you, with CRPS or RSD, the more you research it, you'll realize surgery should be the absolute possible last option. Any new surgery, your body considers that as a trauma, which it is very likely and very possible that your RSD, contrary to what some people believe, can spread, and more than likely it will spread. Now, I was at my wit's end. I was in so much pain that my whole life had changed. I'm usually very outgoing. I'm a social butterfly. I love being outdoors. I love working, and I couldn't do any of that. And this was all just pain in my arm still. And so I agreed to do the spinal cord stimulator trial. And at this point, I was still receiving the stellate ganglion blocks. I went in for the trial, and it seemed to have reduced my pain a little bit. And so I had told him that, I said it didn't help a lot, but it helped a little bit, I think. Now, before I continue, there is a phenomenon that when somebody is in so much pain or so sick that their mind can actually trick them into thinking treatments work. I'm not a doctor, but you can look this up. And my mind had done that. So I agreed to go ahead with the surgery, thinking that that was going to be my cure-all. So he did the surgery. He ended up having to remove one of my vertebrae in my neck. I had about an 8-inch long incision on the back of my neck. So he had done a laminectomy and had to fuse the 2 paddles to my neck bone. And then I had about a 4-inch incision on my right hip area where the fatty tissue is on the back, where they put the battery pack. 2 days after my surgery, my neck was on fire. I've had surgeries my whole life, so I know what post-surgical pain feels like. This was not post-surgical pain. The battery pack incision site was so severe and so hot, I couldn't even touch it without jumping out of my skin. So this went on for 4 or 5 weeks, and every time they adjusted it, they had Medtronic reps out there adjusting it. Every time that they had adjusted it, it just made it worse. The pain was now in my bones, it was in my feet, it was in my muscles, it was in the tissue underneath my skin. I didn't understand what was going on. All I knew was that my body and my pain sensory was just on overload. So he decided to do a few more blocks, even though none of the previous blocks had worked. So at that point, I was so sick. I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I was bedridden. My mom flew up from Florida to help take care of me. And we immediately got on the phone with different doctors, trying to find me a different doctor. It was clear this one had no idea what he was doing. And a lot of it's really fuzzy for me. I was on a lot of medications, not just pain, but nerve medications, muscle relaxers, sleeping medications, anxiety medication, pain medication. I was a zombie. I didn't know who I was. I didn't want to move. So I shut my stimulator off myself. I figured I'd rather be in pain without it than be in pain with it. I knew it wasn't doing me any justice, so I shut it off. My mom and I researched, and we found several articles about ketamine. Sorry, my phone glitched for a second. So we found several articles about ketamine. And we started researching and trying to find a physician that was willing to try ketamine for me. And we got on, somehow my mom found the number for Dr. Pradeep Chopra. And I believe he's in Rhode Island. He's an amazing man. He was my angel at the time. So my mom explained to him what had been going on with me, how sick I was. I believe I had lost upwards of 50 pounds. I was not eating. And he would call at 10 p.m. every night for 2 weeks. He called my mom to check on me. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. To see how I was. I'd never had a doctor make a personal phone call to check on somebody. That's how much he cares about his patients. And he wasn't even my doctor at this time. Nor has he ever been. But he gave us a couple of names of doctors somewhat nearby where we were in South Dakota. The closest one we found was Dr. Brewer. He was in Colorado Springs, which was about an 8.5 hour drive from Rapid City where I lived. We got on the phone with him. Dr. Chopra called him. He had me in the very next week for a consultation. So my mom and my ex-husband and I all packed up and took a road trip out there. I was in a wheelchair at the time. And he literally took one look at me and said, "I think this can help you." So he scheduled us for the following week to come back and do a high-dose ketamine infusion therapy in his office as outpatient. And actually, I believe it was a 3-day treatment, if I'm not mistaken. This was a long time ago. This is back in like the end of 2008, early 2009. So I went in, started the ketamine, and at this point, I hadn't actually walked in almost 6 or 7 months. So I get my first day's treatment, and by the end of the day, I was up walking around the room that he had put me in. It was a huge step for me. And at that point, I was sold on ketamine. And I will push ketamine till the day that I die. It has saved my life on several occasions. So, trying to make a longer story short, I get back to South Dakota, and I realize nobody knows what RSD is. Nobody knows what CRPS is. If they do know, they don't know enough to be treating patients. So, I wanted to get the word out. I had called several of the news companies in Rapid City, explained my situation. I wanted to do an interview, get it out on the air, possibly to help other people that were in my area. So they came, they set up the interview, we did the interview. So at the end of the interview, they had asked me off the record, because they pre-film everything before they air it. And the reporter had asked me off the record who this physician was in Rapid City that had hurt me so bad. So I told them this doctor's name, and I said, "Please, I don't want anything to do with him on this interview. This is a positive thing." And I said, "I'm sure he's a very great doctor, but when it comes to RSD, he does not know enough to be treating patients." So they were supposed to bring me the video to watch before they aired it, the whole interview. And they never did that. So about 3 days later, we're watching the news, and lo and behold, my interview comes on. And, sorry, my nose is going crazy. So we're watching the interview, everything looks great, it's going good. And at the end of the interview, they said that they wanted to also interview the RSD guru of the area, which just so happens to be Dr. Frost, the doctor that had seen me. And he was talking about me like he had never met me, talking about my case, the ketamine. And at the end of the interview, he actually told the news reporter that he had never treated me. He was not my physician. I lost my mind. I cried for days. I mean, I never said one bad thing about him in this interview. I just told him that he was not the right doctor for me. So that was a whole nother blow in itself. But fast forward a little bit, I'm doing great in South Dakota. I've got most of my life back. I was still taking pain medication to deal with, you know, any kind of breakthrough pain that I had. And I left South Dakota and moved to Charleston, South Carolina. So I had to find a whole nother doctor. I found one in Winston-Salem, which was about 4.5 hours away from Charleston. And this physician does ketamine a different way. He no longer does it this way, from what I've told, but my dog. So he puts you in the ICU for 7 days. He inserts a PICC line, which I have a picture of that, so I'll insert that here as well. But they insert a PICC line and they run ketamine consistently 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the whole 7 days you're in ICU. Now, if you have ever had ketamine, you know that it's a hallucinogen. And by day 3, you already have enough ketamine in your system to vividly hallucinate. I think most doctors have learned now that if they give Versed or Ativan, it helps counteract those hallucinations. Versed is my preference. Ativan takes too long to get out of your system, so it makes you feel groggier and like just kind of crappy all around. Versed is in, Versed's out. But that's just my preference. Anyways, so I saw him for a couple of years. Wasn't my favorite physician. He was not very personable. He was a very young guy. He was a very good doctor, but just not what I was looking for. So when I left him, I found a brilliant, amazing physician, Dr. Rollins, in Atlanta, Georgia. And I saw him for several years as well. And I had moved from Charleston back home to Florida with my family for a while. I was still seeing Dr. Rollins in Atlanta. Again, about a 4.5 hour drive. He gave me all the correct pain medications that I needed. Never caused a fuss about it. He never made me feel like an addict or a junkie, or that I was just looking for medication. He listened to everything. He explained everything. His nursing staff was fantastic. I would recommend him to anybody that is in that area looking for an amazing doctor for ketamine. So I ended up moving from Florida to Savannah. This was a year or so after my divorce. Moved to Savannah to be with my now fiance. We've been together for almost 5 years, but we lived in Savannah. We still saw Dr. Rollins for a little bit. And then from Savannah, we moved yet again to Pennsylvania, where I am currently living, to be with my fiance's family and help take care of his dad. And so, of course, had to find another doctor. So luckily, I found one in Pittsburgh, which was only 2 hours away, and Dr. Mackler, and the office is run by him and his wife. It's a very small office. The nursing staff is fantastic. Dr. Mackler is fantastic. Now, he doesn't treat people as a pain specialist. He just specifically does ketamine for depression and pain. He's very well read when it comes to CRPS or RSD. He knows what he's talking about. So, that's where we're at now. I just got done with a 4-day high-dose series of ketamine infusions to help possibly make it last longer for me. Usually I would go for 1 day about every 3 or 4 months. So we're hoping to extend that out a little bit longer. So that's where I'm at now with that. That's my story, my backstory. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me in the comments, or I will also leave my email address down below. And I plan on making a Twitter page. I plan on making a separate Facebook page for Chronically Me. I'm also a photographer, so I have a photography page as well. So I don't want to include all that. That's not really relevant. I mean, unless somebody wants to see it. But I want this channel to be something where everybody can go and hopefully relate. You know, I love to hear all of your stories. I would love more than anything to help you and guide you, just from how I've lived my life with CRPS. And I've tried everything. I'm down to only a couple of medications now that seem to have helped me, and I plan on sticking with those medications. And you know, I'm an open book. I'm not worried about what people think about me, you know, because I take a narcotic pain medication. I'm not a junkie. I am not an addict. And I do have addiction in my family, and we've been battling with addiction in my family for as long as I can remember. And it has almost torn my family apart before. So I do get a little defensive. I've seen some comments on the Facebook RSD support group pages that if you take narcotic pain medication, you're automatically an addict. That is the furthest thing from the truth. There's a difference between being dependent and being addicted. And I think we need to open that platform more so more people feel comfortable talking about their medications, or just wanting to ask their doctors to see if they'll give them a narcotic pain medication prescription. Now, that is not the only thing that I take, but it is what helps me get through my day. There's a couple different topics that I want to talk about, not in detail, just so you guys know for future reference to look at the videos. There's going to be a few different videos out there. One of the videos is I've already pre-recorded part of me getting my last infusion and then accessing my port. I do have a port at the doctor's office, and you know, a little bit of me waking up from the ketamine and what that's like. So there'll be a video about that, specifically about the ketamine treatments. I'd like to have a video when I get enough subscribers for people to ask questions in the comment section or send me emails. And I want to do a Q&A video. By no means am I an expert. Self-proclaimed expert, I would say. I've had, CRPS, RSD since 2008. So I've pretty much been through the ringer with everything. Holistic acupuncture, biofeedback, medications, ketamine, surgeries. It's a long, never-ending list, to be honest. But I have an amazing support system. My mother is my best friend, and she would do anything for me. My fiance, I don't even know how he puts up with me half the days. There will be weeks where I just can't even get off the couch, so he's doing the cooking and the cleaning and taking care of the dogs. And fortunately, right now we don't have kids, so that hasn't played too much of a big role in it. But I want you guys to feel free to contact me, to ask me questions, no matter what the questions are, and I will try my absolute hardest to help you and guide you to where you need to go, or even possibly try finding you, a doctor that is willing to do the treatment that you're looking for in your area. I love researching things, so I'll be more than happy to help. I am going to be doing an unboxing video. I have a couple of those subscription boxes that are based on health and wellness. One of them is sending spoons. I don't know if you know what a spoonie is, but I'll explain that in another video. But they're pretty much like care package boxes for people with chronic illnesses. So I thought that would be fun to unbox some of those videos or some of those boxes one day. But I have a whole lot of ideas of stuff that I would love to talk to you guys about. You know, and if you have any ideas, feel free to shoot it out. And I love recording. I love making, you know, videos. So I figured I would just do it for my own YouTube channel. So if there's anything that you guys want to ask, anything that you want me to talk about in some videos, just put it down in the comment section or send me that email, which the email is chronicallyme85@gmail.com. I'll also put it down below so you guys have it as well. And hopefully the next video that I film, this guy will be off. So I am going home to visit for a week on Sunday. I'll bring my recording stuff with me just in case I do an impromptu video. My niece loves YouTube, so she might want to step in with me. But for now, that is everything that I have. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and send it to as many people as you can. Share it with as many people as you can. The more subscribers we have, that means the more people that this is reaching. And that's the ultimate goal here, guys. So you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon.